Hello, Gamecock fans. I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry. Welcome to Ball Don't Lie, SGTV's premier live sports show.
JP and I will be giving you our weekly insight every Friday.
This week on the show, we're talking college baseball and the start of the MLB season.
And later, updates on the men's and women's NCAA basketball tournaments.
Be sure to stick around for this week's edition of Head to Head Pick'em.
And without further ado, welcome to Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome to the Kennedy Greenhouse Studio.
I'm Spencer Ball.
And I'm JP Barry.
This is the one where there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer.
I'm always the get back game guy.
There's so many teams with so many good wins.
Because, they love seeing Clemson lose no matter what.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that love seeing Clemson lose.
Yeah,
Return of the King released 20 years ago today. There you go. And for that reason, give me the Noles.
I like being right more than I like being happy.
I think the committee made the right choice.
Florida State did not lose a football game. It's football. This is college football. How can you not be romantic about baseball? It's just such a tremendous sport.
It's time. Is it time?
I think it's time.
This is Ball Don't Lie.
Yesterday was opening day for Major League Baseball, and in preparation, myself and Spencer, we made some prediction for the season to come. We're really big baseball guys and very, very, very excited. We're just going to kind of run through it here. I think, starting with the National League East, Spencer, we have the same teams, the Atlanta Braves, of course. But, it's a very stacked division.
It's a really good division. One of the best in all of baseball, but certainly in the National League. And I think there will be a lot of competition, especially in kind of the 2 through 4 range of this division. But I think the Braves are kind of clearing away the best team in this division, as they've shown that, year in and year out, they're a really good regular season team. They do need to, kind of prove it a little bit in postseason play, but I think they just have a super stacked lineup. And barring injuries, there's really no reason why this team won't go back-to-back to how many NL Easts have they won in a row?
I think it would be 7 if they won this year.
Okay.
The Phillies are really good. They have a good lineup. It remains to be seen if Aaron Nola can have a full good season for the first time since 2019. But their bullpen is outstanding. They're obviously going to be a very good team. But another team I like in this division, I like the Mets. Yep. Their lineup is very good. They signed J.D. Martinez. I really like some of their starting pitching reclamation projects. Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, Jose Quintana. Their bullpen with a healthy Edwin Diaz is very good. And, it's a very good – the Nationals are an up-and-coming young team. The Marlins have, just starting pitching out the wazoo. So it's a stacked division that I'm very excited for. Then we're going to move on to the NL Central, where we both have the Cubs.
Yeah, JP's a Braves fan. I'm a Cubs fan. So we're both representing our team. But, I think the NL Central's pretty weak on the whole.
It's one of the divisions ever. I'm a big fan of the Pirates, but I just don't know if they have it over the course of a full season.
I think the Pirates' offense will be good. I think they'll score a lot of runs, but I don't think they have the pitching to really contend. The Cubs, however, I think are the best team, and they showed a lot of promise once Bellinger started to get hot and came back from injury. Moving on to the NL West, we both have the Dodgers.
This division is insane.
It's a stacked division, but in theory, this team should probably have won way more World Series than they have, and somehow they've made their team even better. You probably wouldn't think it would be possible. They've done it, signing Shohei Ohtani for almost $1 billion. So
over the course, deferred payments.
Yeah, so they're going to be great. We both have them moving on, and we'll get to the American League now, where we also both have the Yankees. I think this is another toss-up division. It's really close.
Really is, because the Rays, the Blue Jays, the Orioles, and the Yankees are all very good at certain things. But another thing about this division is that there's a lot of question marks here. The Yankees, they're starting pitching without Garrett Cole. How is that going to hold up before he comes back? The Blue Jays, their bullpen isn't that great, and they're starting pitching beyond their big three. The Orioles, how can they bounce? A young team that has a great season, it's going to be hard to sustain that. And then the Rays, they lost a lot of guys. They lost Wander Franco due to crime. They lost Tyler Glasnow due to trade. So there's just a lot going on here.
Yeah, there sure is. Moving on to the AL Central, this is one of the most interesting divisions in baseball.
You just throw a dart at a wall.
I think this is easily the worst division in baseball, I would say.
Yeah.
I think both Centrals are pretty weak, and then all the other divisions are really strong. But I think the AL Central's far and away worse than the NL Central. I got to stand with my guys. But, I have the Twins coming out on top. They got a solid lineup. I think Buxton's going to be good again.
If he can stay healthy.
Yeah, they still have Correa, and they're looking for some other guys to kind of have bounce-back years. And
I really like Jorge Polanco.
Yeah, I do like him. Royce Lewis, that's the name I was trying to.
Yeah.
They've been kind of waiting for him to break out, and he's shown spurts of it. But also they have, Pablo Lopez, who might be the best starter in the division,
definitely.
The division.
But I mean, also, a contender to that third is Cole Reagans for the Kansas City Royals. They're a team, lots of young talent, very fun. It's going to be about how it comes up through the entire season. It's very much a risky pick, I guess. But if this team can come along like I think they will, I think they can definitely win this division because, really, it
really is a toss-up. I also really like the Tigers. Tarek Skubal, I think, is really good, or Skubal. I'm not quite sure how you say it, but he went 6 innings, no earned yesterday. But again, this division, a real toss-up, but a lot of young talent, so a lot of these teams should be fun to watch in the future. The AL West, the reigning champion Rangers come out of that division, but me and JP both have Seattle. I think it's a race between them, the Rangers, the Astros. Am I forgetting anyone? It's not the A's that's going to contend in that division.
Or no, you're forgetting the Angels, but I couldn't.
The Angels,
I couldn't blame you for that. They're terrible.
I got the 3 good teams out of
there.
We
remembered.
I think the Mariners get it done. Not much left to be said there. I think this is going to be a really good division.
Yeah, I mean, the Mariners starting pitching is unbelievable with
Luis Castillo,
Gibson, and Gilbert as well as him. Their bullpen's very good. Their lineup is good. I mean, Julio Rodriguez is a bona fide walking like 6 or 7 wins above replacement. And then, it's really the fact that this team has lower key question marks. The Astros rotation, because of the Verlander injury, it looks really shaky right now. The Rangers bullpen is pretty bad, and they're dealing with pitching injuries as well without Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom for a while. They also lost Jordan Montgomery in the offseason, so...
I think it's going to be a really fun division. It was last year. It really came down to the end of the season to decide who was getting a wild card, who was, winning the division. But speaking of the wild card, we'll move on to our wild card predictions. Of course, for the rest of this, I'm going to be on the left half. JP's going to be on the right half. Continuity. We both have the Giants and the Diamondbacks as wild card teams. I have the Marlins. You have the Phillies. I think the Giants and the D-backs are not necessarily locks, but I think those are the 2 safest picks for the wild card.
Yeah, I mean, the Diamondbacks, obviously, they won the National League pennant a year ago, and they only improved their team, including signing Gamecock alumni Jordan Montgomery last week. And then the San Francisco Giants, I really like the improvements they made. They went out and made some trades. They picked up Blake Snell. They picked up Jorge Soler. And Matt Chapman. I just think they're going to be a much improved team, and the NL West is just going to be, beat them up action all year long. And then the Phillies, I can't see them missing the postseason.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking about the Phillies, but I put the Marlins in there, change it up a little. I think the Marlins are going to be really good. Again, we talked about their starting rotation as well as they get guys on base, and I think Jazz Chisholm's going to have a really good year. Moving to the American League, we have the same exact teams. We have the Rangers, the Astros, and the Orioles. I think it's pretty cut and dry here. I mean,
you could see the Rays or the Blue Jays
potentially,
there, but it's really kind of, I don't want to say top heavy, but.
And moving on to our World Series predictions, I have the Braves over the Astros. Houston just kind of is another beast in the postseason. Yeah. And, they didn't look great last year in the postseason, but historically they've just looked really good. But I have the Braves winning it all this year. I think they finally figured it out in the postseason for the first time since 2021. Music to your ears, I presume. Tell us who you got.
I dug deep, and of course I wanted to pick the Braves, but I really, really love what the Yankees did. I love the Juan Soto addition. I like the Alex Verdugo and Jurickson Profar as well in terms of outfield depth. They have one of the best defensive infields in baseball. Anthony Volpe was a great defensive rookie last year if he can come along hitting-wise. DJ LeMahieu, if he can come back healthy. It hinges on, a lot of ifs. But, Giancarlo Stanton, the talent is there. And Anthony Rizzo coming back from injury, he was outstanding last year before the concussion. Then they have Aaron Judge. And, I think they make a big trade at the midpoint of the season for another starter to go with Garrett Cole. And then the Giants, it's an even year. That's 10 years to the Devil Magic. But, as much as I would love to pick The Atlanta
Yeah,
Braves.
you finally see our faces again. Sorry for the rambling. That's kind of our specialty. One last thing on the MLB, we'll talk about our MVP picks. We both have Ronald Acuna Jr. going back to back. He's amazing. I mean, he could have a 50 home run, 70 stolen base year. He could do about anything, and we'd be like, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, he was the first to 40-70 last year, so, I mean, he could be the first to 50-70 this year.
50-75, it's totally believable. I have J-Rod in the American League, Julio Rodriguez. He's amazing. Great defensive center fielder, but the bat really came alive towards the end of last year, and I think the Mariners, I think he's going to lead them to the division title.
They're I think that's definitely up there, but I think Juan Soto's going to do. We saw it yesterday. Yeah. He gunned out the tying run at home plate in Houston, that huge rivalry matchup for the Yankees, and he was able to come through. And I just think, especially with that short porch in right field, he's going to contend for, I think, 50 or 60 home runs. And if he can just be serviceable in the field, I don't think it's close. I think he wins the title, the MVP. And I think he could win the Triple Crown, honest to God.
He certainly could, and that's all we've got for MLB. I'm sorry for the over 10-minute segment there, but we will stick with baseball. In college baseball, the Gamecocks traveled to Tuscaloosa this weekend to continue SEC play against Alabama. JP, yesterday, Game 1 took place, and the Gamecocks fell 4-3. And, of course, when I made the graphic, I said the Bats are alive and well, and
well,
as luck would have it, they died last night. Playing okay, but the Gamecocks really looked good last week. They swept Vanderbilt, put up 26 runs in 3 games against, at the time, the number 3 team in the country. Hung 19 on Presbyterian, but allowed 14. I guess we won't talk about that.
Well, midweek pitching. I think we could end up being used in a midweek game down the line here.
They don't want to see my palm ball. I've watched a couple of YouTube tutorials there. It's disgusting. But again, Eli Jones, another outstanding start from him, and kind of the Gamecocks fell apart kind of late, and, I believe it was a pass ball that allowed a runner to score in the 8th inning, and, that's what did it for the Gamecocks. Of course, there is 2 more games, one tonight at 7 p.m., Dylan Eskew on the bump versus Ben Hess. Game 3, it's going to be Saturday at 2 with Tyler Pitzer versus Greg Perrone, of course, giving the boys Sunday off for Easter. But Tyler Pitzer last week won SEC Freshman of the Week.
Yeah, he's
really dominated Vanderbilt.
He's really kind of taking a hold of this Sunday starter role. And then you're going to have, that gives the Gamecocks options with Roman Kimball and Ty Good and Matthew Becker in terms of long relief and midweek opportunities. But it was more of the same for South Carolina in terms of what plagued them in this road game. It's what's plagued them on the road all year long. It was just not being able to come through with runners in scoring position. Happened multiple times during the night. I think we left about 9 or 10 men on base.
Bases loaded at one point. Am I correct? Yep.
And it was just it was hard to watch, but plenty of baseball left to be played. And after that sweep against Vanderbilt, the Gamecocks saw themselves either returning or with a huge boost in the polls and all the major ones, going up from 21st to 10th. In Baseball America, from unranked to 14th in the coaches poll, 25th to 16th in the College Baseball Writers Association, and then previously unranked to 18th in both D1 Baseball and Perfect Game. So the Gamecocks getting back a little bit of that national respect after a tough start to SEC play. If they can get a road series victory against the number 16 Crimson Tide, we'll really start getting the ball rolling. We're seeing a lot of projections having the Gamecocks as a national host for the NCAA tournament, but that's a long way down the road.
Certainly, and it's going to be them needing to win some of these close games. The 3-4 losses to Alabama when, again, you have the bases loaded opportunity while you're up 3-1. You got to take advantage of that. And, we'll see if they can do that. But, it's been a promising home field so far for the Gamecocks, and that's something I'm sure they'll look to throughout the rest of the season.
Absolutely, and the Gamecocks aren't the only South Carolina team looking to stay hot in conference play. Clemson and the 3rd-ranked Tigers are going to take on Miami in Florida this weekend, and last night, more of the same from a Gamecock point of view. The Hurricanes walked off the Tigers 3-2 in a low-scoring affair that involved some defensive miscues. The big story of it all was Gage Zeal for Miami. Hurled a complete game with 15 strikeouts against one of the best lineups in baseball. As you can see there, the Tigers are 22-3, 5-2 in conference play. Number 1 in the RPI, number 1 in strength of schedule. And last weekend against the previously undefeated Florida State Seminoles, came back from deficits of 4, 7, and 9 in each game. So it's a big weekend for Clemson. Of course, another road test after they went on the road and took down Duke last weekend or 2 weekends ago, and this team has the juice. They're 10th in the nation in home runs. Blake Wright, Alden Mathis, Jimmy Obertop, and Cam Cannarella are just a few of the names headlining this insane lineup. A big story for them is they're going to need to start getting their starting pitching going a little bit. And they're going with some new faces on the mound this weekend with Ethan Darden making his second start, as well as Lucas Malston. I think it was up there. Aiden Knack. Malsted made the start last night and was okay, but Aiden Knack returned to the mound. He's had a decent year so far.
Yeah, and if the starting pitching can at least calm down a little bit, their lineup certainly has enough juice to get this team over the hump. And we saw against Florida State, it was the super high-scoring games that they were able to mount ridiculous comebacks against to come out with the wins against the previously undefeated Seminoles. But, I mean, again, if the pitching settles in, I would say, and they can kind of figure out their rotation a little bit, this lineup's deadly.
It bangs, dude. I mean, they, just like South Carolina, they take bases when they can. South Carolina first in the country in walks, and Clemson's in the top 15 and 40 behind South Carolina. So it's just crazy.
It sure is. Blake Wright so far, just for some quick stats, he's batting .365 with 13 home runs and 40 RBIs. Like, easily the best hitter on this team so far. And that's saying a lot. There's a lot of good hitters on this team, but having 40 RBIs so far in the season is just ridiculous. But that's not the only collegiate baseball team we're talking about. One of the most anticipated series in all of college began yesterday, with the Arkansas Razorbacks already up 1-0 over LSU. And two SEC powerhouses, traditionally great teams. Arkansas, of course, ranked #1 in the nation. They came out with a 7-4 victory in Game 1 with Hagen Smith getting the win, and he's been one of the most dominant pitchers in the nation so far, the lefty. Yeah,
absolutely, and it's really kind of shocking that LSU has struggled so hard to start conference play. And they went up against an outstanding starting pitcher in Smith for Arkansas, and they did, I believe, they hosted Florida a week ago, so they're going through the gauntlet right now. But LSU, you really got to start bouncing back, because at some point, even though you're playing all these good teams, you're still losing. And so you don't want to get yourself too far into a hole like South Carolina did in conference play a year ago. But it's a very exciting time. We got two of the best teams, two of the best programs. I'm a big fan of the hitting of this LSU team. Of course, you have Tommy White, who has 7 home runs and a .557 slugging percentage. But they also had 3 home runs in their midweek game from Mac Bingham, Tommy White, and Hayden Travaniski. That's a fun name.
They sure did, and the team that won the title last year, they certainly lost a lot to the MLB draft. Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens, pretty handily the best batting prospect and the best pitching prospect in the draft. Although Wyatt Langford looked really good in his MLB debut last night, of course, the former Florida Gator. But they've got their hands full as this Arkansas team. They've been getting a lot of hype all off season, and so far they're living up to it. 21-3, only 1 loss in SEC play. I think they might look to take it all this year. But of course, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves, and we're not done yet. But we will take a quick break. Be sure to stay tuned for all your college basketball news after this quick commercial.
Yesterday began the Sweet 16 in men's March Madness, starting with Clemson knocking off Arizona. And Spencer, this was a very fun game. Clemson kind of controlled it a lot of the way. Arizona made a late comeback, but Clemson was able to retake the lead and hold on, led by P.J. Hall, who, the man from Spartanburg, did it again. But, man, Chase Hunter has had a great NCAA tournament, hasn't he?
He sure has really showed up against Arizona. And the thing about Clemson that I love, just going over, the box score and the stats, everyone gets involved on the glass and everyone gets involved in the passing game. It's hard not to love the way they play, but let me tell you, Arizona soiled it royally. I mean, goodness. Shooting 37% from the field, 17.9% from 3. You have to give Clemson credit, making their lives hard. Caleb Love with an all-time tournament stinker. Arizona, really no signs of life offensively. Umar Ballo was good on the interior, but when Clemson started fouling him, he went 1 for 7 from the line. It was Jaden Bradley, the Wildcats guard, young kid coming off the bench, leading the team in scoring, and only had I think 3 guys in double figures, if not maybe a fourth guy got to the
Caleb Love
10-point
was brutal.
mark. But it was just tough. Nothing doing. And Clemson, I mean, they really were built for the tournament, and they've showed it so far. Arizona becomes the first number 2 seed to lose in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, we'll talk about Clemson a little bit here in a bit when we talk about their matchup against Alabama. But you know, this was only the first game, and it was a lot of fun. This has been a great tournament so far, I think. But it was kind of like leak into the rest of the action, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I mean, these are going to be a little quick because we're just going to, give you a little preview.
We spent a lot of time talking about Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and and also we'll give you a preview of last night and a preview for the rest of your weekend as the defending champs UConn absolutely destroyed San Diego State in a title rematch from last year. And we've been saying it all year long. This UConn team looks like the best team in the country, and I mean they just put San Diego State in the dirt.
I mean, it was close for a little bit. You know, San Diego State had it in the first half, and then UConn goes on a little bit of a run. They extend their lead to 9 at the break, and then they just never look back. I mean, that's how they get you. It's like an alligator death roll.
Yeah, but it goes from 9 to 30 in like the drop of a hat. It's so quick. Kim Spencer led the team in scoring with 18 points, 5 boards, and 3 steals. That's another thing about this UConn team. Defensively, they're just on another level. Everyone has active hands. They're switching everything. They're making it's just an offensive nightmare. I would hate to play against these guys. And I think that's the way Dan Hurley wants his team to play. Just tenacious, going after the ball. And on offense, JP, they move more than most other teams I've seen.
Yeah,
They're screening, a lot of action.
A lot of off-ball, just a ton of different sets they run.
Yeah.
Leedy for San Diego State had 15 points in the first 12 minutes of the game, and then had 3 points the rest of the way. I remember San Diego State when they beat up on Yale. People were like, "Man, if San Diego State can hit shots like this, they can hang without UConn with that defense."
You can't hang with UConn shooting 22% from 3.
No.
You're going to have a good scoring night to at least make it close. Again, UConn hasn't lost since they played at Creighton February 20th, over a month, and they've only lost 3 times all season.
Yeah.
They're used to winning. They look good.
You know who didn't look good? The team we're about to talk about, not Alabama, though. The Crimson Tide picked up a signature win against number 1 seed North Carolina, where their stars they were leaving stains on the court, is how I'm going to put it. Armando Bacot, he was okay, missed a crucial dunk late.
Oh yeah, that's
and 19 points on 18 field goal attempts as a big man is kind of absurd. R.J. Davis.
Yeah, he really off night. Grant Nelson, you got to give credit where credit's due. Nelson looked amazing. Estrada was really good. Rylan Griffin was good, and Mark Sears were good. They had 4 scorers for Alabama that scored like 90% of the points. Everyone else was just kind of out there playing defense, running cardio, passing, hitting the glass. But for UNC, this is a horrible loss.
You know who did play good for UNC?
Loss.
Cormac Ryan.
Cormac Ryan played really good. He had a great post-game interview.
I didn't see it.
Because, he was saying, as much as R.J. Davis didn't have a good game, they wouldn't be here without him, which is, of course, true. He's ACC Player of the Year. He's kind of led the team the whole way. And my thing for UNC is if R.J. Davis is having an off night, why is he shooting 20 shots? Like, I get when he was great from the free throw line. That's where most of his points came from because clearly he wasn't hitting them from 3. Getting him to the line is fine.
What was Jalen Withers doing?
But at the end of the game, JP, it was just they were setting screens and just having him sprint into Grant Nelson, who is over 7 feet tall. He has 5 blocks. I'm like, work the ball to Bacot, draw a double, kick it out, and, maybe someone else can hit a 3. The offensive game plan was nowhere to be found. This loss is on Hubert Davis. And not only, it's just they're playing dumb offense, but they don't know. One thing, there's maybe a couple teams left in the tournament that know how to properly guard screens. Grant Nelson, again, over 7 feet tall.
One of them is the Clemson Tigers.
The main ball handler for Alabama. And they're sagging off Grant Nelson, putting a hand in his face, and he couldn't miss the whole second half. You're not going to chase him off the screen. You're not going to bump the screener. You're not going to go over it. You're just going to let him pull up and shoot in your face. And that's what they did over and over again. And if not, they would just double and leave a free slip pass for a layup. It's bad coaching. It's lazy.
It's a stupid team.
And it happens.
A guy who has shot 19 three-pointers in the entire year taking a crucial late 3 while they're up by 1.
Yeah, it's
you can take the guy away from Kenny Payne, but you can't take the Kenny Payne away from the guy.
You know what else you can never teach a North Carolina coach to do? Call timeout. Good God, Hubert will save 3 timeouts till there's 30 seconds left. And
they're not like cell phone minutes, Coach.
I know, they don't cost you. But it was just, it was a tough loss. And
I'm glad you got that out.
I needed to. Thanks, buddy. I mean, I don't know. We'll move on because it's just oh so heartbreaking. The last game that happened last night saw 2 teams in the Midwest duking it out, with Illinois coming out on top. They've looked like one of the best teams so far in the tournament, but this game was just gritty. And I feel like that's definitely to be expected from these teams.
I think so too. It was kind of a brutal matchup for a little bit there, but it turned on late. Terrence Shannon Jr., he has 25 points in each NCAA tournament game. He's really been the engine for this Illinois team. I mean, what would they do without him if something happened? I'm not sure. But, Iowa State was just MIA offensively for too long, and then they just didn't really have enough to get back into it late.
Well, their leading scorer was Curtis Jones, who's a guard that comes off the bench.
Yeah.
He had 26 points, and, of course, a great performance from him. And usually 26 points from a guy from off the bench is enough to get it done on, any given day. They had 3 scorers in double figures. Their best players just not showing up offensively, and they just didn't have it. Against Wazoo, they shot lights out, and last night that wasn't the case.
Wazoo would not have done this. They would have vanquished the evil that is Illinois. But that's whatever.
True.
We're looking into it.
Illinois, though, they will move on. They will move on to play. Of course, the 1 seed UConn. It's their first Elite 8 since 2005, when they made it all the way to the title game with a 37-2 team, and then they were killed by the UNC Tar Heels. Yay! That's like the one celebration we can have for that team today. So,
yeah.
But the round of 16 continues today. There's more basketball, which is great news, where teams from the Midwest and South regions will fight for a spot in the Elite 8, and we got some good matchups today, don't
Including, but not limited to, you got Purdue taking on Gonzaga in the Midwest, as well as Tennessee and Creighton, and then in the South, you have Marquette, NC State, and Houston and Duke. I mean, star-studded historical matchups, and it's a lot of big-time players. Got Dalton Connect going up against, the infinite scoring of depth of Creighton. How is Graham Ike going to deal with Zach Edey down low? You have Houston, who had their worst defensive performance of the season, the second round against Texas A&M, against Duke, who's really rounding into form. And then DJ Burns in the Wolfpack against, Tyler Kolek, Oso Ighodaro, and Marquette.
Can the magic continue, or will my dad send me another text that the Wolfpack has somehow gotten it done again? It really is the highlights of game day whenever teams he doesn't like wins. It's pretty funny. But again, NC State has kind of just found a way to win. They just find ways to win. You're like
Mohamed Diarra coming up with a big board. Ben Middlebrooks turning into white Hakeem Olajuwon there for a little bit.
O'Connell has 14 assists and 3 turnovers in 2 games.
Yeah.
Facilitator role. But again, there's just, there's so many interesting matchups. Duke has looked like the best team in the tournament so far. Just murdering James Madison. Jared McCain University got sent home early.
That they did.
But there's so many good matchups. Clearly, we love basketball. It's gonna be a fun day to watch. But speaking of the Elite 8, we have 2 matchups for you this Saturday, and we'll start with UConn versus Illinois.
This is a big-time matchup between 2 star-studded teams. You have UConn, who is they've won their last 8 tournament games by 10 or more points, most of them being by 15 or more. They're looking for their 3rd Final Four appearance in the last 10 years, with 2 of those resulting in national championships. They're just an incredibly complete team. They're great on defense, great on offense, led by a host of players, but Tristan Newton has really been a crazy engine for them, especially with his ability to put up triple-doubles. They're going up against the Illinois team. This is kind of a historically great year for them, but there's a glaring flaw here.
What's that, JP?
They don't really play a whole lot of defense. And I've personally seen UConn play against teams that don't play a whole lot of defense.
What? Hey,
Fire
JP,
and brimstone. Sea of cobalt and glass. There is nothing for you here. Your people are lost. I think UConn,
Yes.
it's going to be, hey, they're going to put a lot on the shoulders of Terrence Shannon Jr. and Marcus Damask. Does Illinois have someone down low who can guard Donovan Clingan?
There might not be a person in the country that can hang with him. He's a great screener. And you can speak about him on the offensive end, but on the defensive end, I mean, he's just a block machine. He's super, super talented. And UConn, they're going to look to win back-to-back titles for the first time since the 06-07 Florida Gators with, Joakim Noah, Al Horford.
There's someone,
Corey Brewer on
Corey
there?
Brewer,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking of. And then, on Saturday night in the primetime slot, the Clemson Tigers are going to face off on TBS against Alabama in a historic showdown, a rematch of their game back in November in Tuscaloosa.
It's not the college football playoff. This is the Elite Eight.
Yeah, you people wanted expansion so much, this is what you get. But, it's two teams, similar records.
People.
And kind of similar paths and similar historical notes. This is their second Elite Eight in program history for both teams. But, the one difference is Alabama has kind of played with their hair on fire and these spirited comebacks and these crazy back-and-forth games. Meanwhile, Clemson has led for 118 of 120 total minutes in this NCAA tournament, going wire-to-wire against Baylor, leading for almost the entire game against Arizona last night, and New Mexico only being in the lead for 40 seconds in the first round. It's a very balanced Clemson team. Their defensive numbers have been outstanding in this tournament. P.J. Hall, Ian Shefflin, Chase Hunter has averaged 21.8 points per game in the tournament. Going up against an Alabama team that, it says what you're going to get on the can.
Yeah, it sure does. I mean, they're going to score a lot of points. And surprisingly, I thought the Crimson Tide played pretty good defense against UNC. They made a lot of shots hard. Grant Nelson really, that was his signature moment for sure yesterday.
We'll see how he can defend against, it's interesting because Baycott's more of a traditional big. He's going to back him down. And, in their first matchup, Nelson got kind of picked on by Clemson's stretch bigs like Ian Shefflin, who banked in a three last night in a crazy sequence. Yeah. And P.J. Hall, who they used to really kind of get dribble handoffs top of the key and kind of knock it in. The out-of-bounds plays by Brad Barnell last night were just something to behold. And so it's two of the great, I think, tacticians of the game, Brad Barnell and Nate Oates, going against each other.
And it's going to be a lot of fun, but if there wasn't enough college basketball to watch, the Women's Sweet 16 begins today as well. And, of course, the beloved Gamecock women's basketball team will play today. Of course, the first game of the day, you've got number 2 Notre Dame taking on number 3 Oregon State, followed by the 1-seeded Gamecocks versus Indiana. That's in the Albany Regional. Of course, moving out west to Portland, it's going to be number 2 Stanford versus number 3 NC State, and then number 1 Texas versus number 4 Gonzaga. A lot of good matchups. Again, you can see kind of some individual player matchups there. And Hidalgo's going to be taking stage, Camila Cardoso, and Cameron Brink. I mean, there's so many players you can name, but it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of really good teams here.
Yeah, a lot of difference in styles. Yeah. NC State, especially against Stanford, that's going to be a fun clash. But I just want to bring to attention the season Hannah Hidalgo is having. I just want to make sure I get all these stats right here. She's a true freshman, averaging 22.9 points per game, 6.2 rebounds, 5.6 assists, and 4.6 steals while shooting 35% from deep. As a true freshman.
God, it'd be a shame if she transferred to South Carolina.
I don't think that's going to happen. But
I mean, that would be.
That'd be showtime.
Hold on. I mean, I just put that in my own mind. That'd be scary. I don't know if they'd show that on TV and we'd just be beating teams by 90.
Yeah. And, today's not the only thing in the women's tournament. There's going to be another thrilling slate tomorrow with the games starting at 1 p.m. And these games are taking stage on ABC in the early window with LSU against UCLA at 1 p.m., Iowa against Colorado at 3:30. Then at 5:30 in the Portland Regional, you have Southern Cal against Baylor. And at 8 p.m., UConn versus Duke. Duke, kind of the Cinderella story of this women's tournament, defeating number 2 seed Ohio State to get here. Caitlin Clark versus Vonleh for Colorado, and then you have
Angel Reese, of course.
Juju Watkins. Who will win this matchup? Field goal attempts or points for Juju Watkins?
Yeah, she does chuck up some shots, but hey, she's freshman All-American. Had a great year for Southern Cal, and there's a reason they're a 1 seed. But the team around her doesn't get talked about enough. They got a lot of good scoring options, and if they get hot, I mean, they're really good shooters. But going back to Duke, this is a team, of course, the lowest seed still in the tournament, a 7 seed. But something we've seen all year long is their ability to play up to their opponents.
Yeah.
They played South Carolina, maybe their toughest game of the regular season outside of LSU in Durham. I mean, they know how to play against good teams, and that's served them well.
They have that edge about them, that chip on their shoulder. You come in here with your star rankings and records and predictions and betting lines, but they just dig in and they have this wherewithal about them. It's a very fun thing to watch.
They sure do, and that's all we've got for you today. We'll be right back after the break with this week's Pick'ems to wrap up another episode of Ball Don't Lie.
Welcome back to BDL Pick'ems. At the start of Week 7, Spencer has 36 wins and 26 losses, and I don't exist anymore. I'm 30 and 32. Let's roll through this real quick, starting with the women's bracket. You got Oregon State versus Notre Dame today. Spencer, who do you got?
I've got Notre Dame. You talked about Hannah Hidalgo's stats. I think the Fighting Irish move on and set up a possible matchup against South Carolina.
Yeah, rematch of that first game of the season. Speaking of South Carolina, I also have Notre Dame. I think that's pretty obvious.
Of course.
At this point. A Cinderella Indiana team going up against South Carolina.
We saw Indiana go out game 2 last year, I think, against Miami, I want to say. So a good bounce back year, even though they lost some talent. I'm taking the Gamecocks. I think this is far and away the best team in the country. But they just got to, one game at a time, keep going.
Indiana does have some finesse in their front court,
they do.
But South Carolina, I just think it's too much. Then we move on to NC State against Stanford. Stanford got pushed to the limit against Iowa State last weekend. Who do you got, Spencer?
I'm going to take Stanford in this one. It's a Portland regional. I think there's going to be a lot of Stanford fans there. And I think, Cameron Brink's kind of last run, I think she got a lot of good shooters around her. She's a threat in the post. And I think the Cardinals get it done. You?
I think it's going to be a great game. But something about this NC State team has been eating at me for a little bit.
Both NC State teams.
They've showcased
with the pack.
They've showcased an ability like Duke to go out and slay Goliath. And Cameron Brink is very tall. So I'm just going to say that I think NC State pulls off the upset in Portland.
Female Goliath.
Our final women's game, Gonzaga against Texas. Two very offensively oriented teams. There's going to be a lot of points in this one.
Sure are. I've got Texas moving on. I think, just with the caliber of teams they've played throughout the year being in the Big 12 instead of the West Coast Conference, I think that kind of gives them an advantage playing, a lot better opponents throughout the year. So I'm going to take the Horns. I think it's a safe pick, though. But I think this one should be good.
I agree. I've been fighting in myself about this, but I'm going to take Texas. I think it's just a little bit too much of star power there for the Longhorns. Then now we're going to move on to the men's.
We sure are, starting off with Purdue Gonzaga. JP, who you got?
This is a battle of stretching the floor.
Yep.
And this Gonzaga team is playing really, 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 really well. I'm going to go with Graham Ike and the Bulldogs. I think that they knock off Purdue. I just don't think Purdue – I don't know what Purdue's going to be able to do, if they can pull out Zach Edey away from the post. Yeah,
and I'm also going to go with Gonzaga. And it's it's a team I had going to my Final Four in our bracket prediction, which please don't go back and watch. We'll take your YouTube view, but goodness, do not –
That's not worth the hit to our honor and distinction.
Yeah, it looks bad. But so does everyone else's. It's been a crazy, crazy tournament. Gonzaga stretches the floor, and I think they have a lot more. They have a better team overall as a team. I think Purdue, the Braden Smith-Zach Edey duo is unbelievable. But, it's 5-on-5 basketball. And Braden Smith is everywhere. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the country. I watched him play against Grambling and then in the round of 32 against Utah State. He's everywhere. He's making great passes. He's finding the open man. But Purdue, do they have the ability to knock down the shots? And
these high-pressure situations.
I think it's going to be tough to do so. Gonzaga demolished Kansas.
Yeah.
And they looked really good offensively, so I'm going to take the hot hand. Moving on to Tennessee Creighton. Who you got?
It's one scoring option against many. Although Dalton Connect is amazing, I just don't see how they are able to contest down low against Ryan Kalkbrenner. And then when you get outside, Trey Alexander, Steve Ashworth, Baylor Shireman, it's just too much. I think Creighton wins.
It really is. I'm also going to take the Blue Jays. After they survived that game against Oregon, that shows you a lot about a team because, man, the Ducks wanted that Sweet 16. Jermaine Couisnard was out there chucking for his life. Him and N'Faly Dante tried to take down the Blue Jays, but they were able to stifle it, get it to double overtime. And the way they adapted and how they played defense in double overtime showed me a lot about this team. So I think they'll find a way to slow down Connect, and they'll get the win. Houston versus Duke, JP.
Houston, one of the best defenses, but they showed a lot of cracks against Texas A&M, and they gave up a lot of free throws to Texas A&M. And something, Duke, refs do kind of like giving free throws to Duke a little bit. I don't think Duke will even need it though.
They have not needed them in the last 2 games.
I think they're going to continue their hot stretch of play. They're really rounding into form at the right time. I really like this Duke team, and I think they knock off Houston.
I'm also going to take the Blue Devils. Again, I said it earlier, I think they've been the best team in the tournament so far. They've looked outstanding. Jared McCain has proved himself as one of the best freshmen in the country. And if he gets hot from 3, this Duke team can win it all.
Absolutely.
And our last matchup, we'll talk about Marquette versus NC State. Marquette, your team to win it all. NC State, arguably your favorite team. You like to rub that in my face. Go ahead, JP.
I have, the tie, the pick.
It's Golden Eagles-esque.
But all I have to say to that is, go State.
Go Golden Eagles. I think Marquette knocks them off. I think the Magic ends here. At least I hope so. I can't take another Wolfpack win. Too many texts in a group chat of, oh man, I need to see him.
Feels like 1983, baby.
I need to see him come back down to earth. But that's going to do it for this episode of Ball Don't Lie. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at SGTV at USC.
To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at SGTV at USC.com. For SGTV, I'm JP Barrett.
And I'm Spencer Ball. From all of us here at SGTV, have a great weekend, Carolina, and happy Easter.
Forever to thee.